Steelers, Ravens week. We know what it is. Best rivalry in the NFL. And that's not hyperbole. That's not a stretch. It is what it is. Steelers, Ravens, best rivalry in the NFL. It's been that way probably since the Big Ben era started, going back to the early 2000s, mid 2000s, all the way up to this point. Best rivalry in the league. Name a better one. You can't. Like, you could name rivalries. You could talk about the Bears Packers, but that's been pretty much just the Packers owning the Bears and Aaron Rodgers dominating the Bears. It's very, very one-sided. And I wish the Steelers Ravens one was one-sided. It's actually been pretty one-sided recently. Over the last, I think it's 8 games, Steelers are 7-1 against the Ravens. But Tomlin versus Harbaugh, I literally just combined Tomlin's name and Harbaugh's name. I don't even know what I just said there, but it sounded like I combined their names. But Tomlin versus Harbaugh, it's a close match. The win-loss records are very close, back and forth for most of their careers. Again, dating back to like that early 2000s. Now that was with Cowher and Brian Billick still, but then we segued into the Tomlin Harbaugh era, them being the coaches. Late 2000s, and they're still here. 2 Hall of Fame guys, 2 guys that have won Super Bowls with their respective teams. What other rivalry is there? What other rivalry beats Steelers Ravens? Cowboys Giants, Cowboys Eagles. I don't know. None of those hit the same. NFC West, you got Niners, Seahawks, but those are more like for stretches of time, like periods, you know? You go back to the Legion of Boom, go back to when Niners had like Kaepernick. That was more when that was like a back and forth thing. Over more recently, it's been the Niners dominating. Seahawks have been on a downturn. Just in terms of 2 teams that are consistently at the top of their game, consistently relevant. And it's always a bloodbath. It's always going to be a big matchup. No matter how much better one team is than the other in a given season, or who looks better on paper, who has a little bit more of the talent, or how the teams are structured, it's always going to be a good match. You know it's going to be coming down to the wire. Whether it's home, whether it's away, whether you're playing in Pittsburgh or Baltimore, it doesn't matter. Best rivalry in football, and this is game 1 of the 2024 series. We got to play the Ravens again. I think it's the second to last week. It's either the last week of the season or second to last week of the season. It's crazy. This is the Steelers' first AFC North matchup of the season. Pretty wild, and it's week 11. But in the spirit of the rivalry, let's start off talking about it, because this is going to be a Steelers versus Ravens week 11 preview. We're going to get into that into the second half of the show. But to start off, we'll just go over some Steelers news, some Steelers updates. But in the spirit of the rivalry, we're going to talk some Patrick Queen, because he's the guy that's played for both teams, was drafted by the Ravens 4 years ago, I guess 4.5 years ago, first-round pick, was slated to be their franchise linebacker. And for the most part, he was, but they didn't view him as the number one, the guy that was deserving of the $15+ million, $20 million a year contract. So in the middle of Patrick Queen's career with the Ravens, they traded for Roquan Smith. They viewed him as the alpha. They gave him the contract. And when Patrick Queen was up for a new deal this offseason, became a free agent, he obviously didn't re-sign with the Ravens. And today he gave some clarification as to why. And we kind of knew this too, but he didn't go this far whenever he talked about his decision to sign with the Steelers. He said he wasn't offered to go back to the Ravens. It's not even like the Ravens offered him something and it just didn't hit for Queen. It wasn't satisfactory for Queen. It's that they didn't even offer him at all. That was some of the clarification he gave today. He said, I don't know if I said that or not, but put that in the public or not. I wasn't wanted back. I didn't get offered back. It is definitely kind of upsetting being there for 4 years and the bond that you grow with your teammates and stuff. First few months, you definitely go through those feelings. And now, after playing games, you just want to win games. You want to win with your teammates, your new teammates. You want to bond with those guys. And that's fair. But I don't think you're bringing this up and making sure this is known before Ravens week. If there isn't a little extra there isn't a little extra juice or animosity that you have against your former team. I think if you didn't want it let known that they didn't offer you, you would have just said like, yeah, I just didn't see it as a fit going forward. We just didn't really see eye to eye on negotiations. You would have just left it at that. But I think you're throwing a little bit more kindling to the fire. You're adding a little bit more gas to the flame here by saying I wasn't even offered to go back. They didn't even want me like that. So whether that's for Patrick Queen to motivate himself even more, which he probably doesn't need, or maybe he's using these comments to motivate his teammates. Be like, bro, come on. I get it too. But how much more motivation do you need for a rivalry game like this? But hey, some extra stuff doesn't hurt. I'll tell you that. You throw some bulletin board material out there. You throw some added stakes, added context into the game. It's not going to hurt. Definitely not going to hurt at all. So shout out to Patrick Queen for being on the Steelers, being on the right side of this rivalry, and playing his best game as a Steeler last week. So hopefully he could piggyback off of that and make it an even better game this week against his former team, the Baltimore Ravens. Speaking of new guys on the Steelers, one of the newest, Mike Williams, had a great debut in the black and gold last week against the Commanders by catching the game-winning touchdown pass for 30-something yards. Most critical moment of the game, 3rd and long. We just take a timeout. I was not happy about it with us taking the timeout. Thought it could be detrimental to us in the future parts of the game. If we didn't convert on that 3rd down, if we didn't score a touchdown, we could have used that timeout on defense to get the ball back in a last-ditch effort to win the game. But didn't need it. Didn't need it because Russell Wilson found Mike Williams hitting a vertical down the sideline. Beautiful ball. Mike Williams got the separation. Willie mazed it over the shoulder. Got the feed in. Game-winning touchdown. Great debut for Mike Williams. Now, he went to Instagram after his first game in a Steelers uniform. Posted some pictures. And also had a caption that corresponded with the pictures that said, thankful. And, I guess that's like the love sign emoji, like all love. And then he had a snake. I don't know if that snake's related. Did you guys see the story today that there was a snake in the Steelers locker room at Washington Stadium, that they saw it like over by Russell Wilson's locker, and then they weren't able to catch it. It actually went back under the locker. So I don't know. I guess maybe the snake is in relation to that. Who knows? But then he said, hashtag whole lotta, hashtag we back. And then the final hashtag was red line. And we know what that red line, that hashtag red line could be insinuating. A shot at Mike Williams' former teammate, Aaron Rodgers, because we know how Mike Williams' tenure ended with the Jets. It was on was it a Sunday Night Football game? I think it was a Monday Night Football game where the Jets were playing the Bills. They had a chance to have a game-winning drive. Rodgers throws one up to Mike Williams on a vertical down the red line. And that's the funniest part. And that's why I think him putting the hashtag red line is very curious on this Instagram post, because who has ever called like a vertical route, a go route, being on the red line? Like, that was the first time I ever heard of the red line in my life as a football fan. And it's because Aaron Rodgers brought it up in the press conference, right? So I don't think it's a coincidence Mike Williams puts this hashtag red line in there, because I guess technically he was running this go route on the red line for the game-winning touchdown pass in the Steelers versus Commanders game. So he had redemption on the red line essentially last week. And I think he wanted to let it be known. Like, hey, man, yeah, I know what I'm doing on the red line. I could catch passes like this. Don't let Rodgers mind warp you guys into making you think I'm a bad player that doesn't know what I'm doing out here. Now, Williams did respond to some of the chatter revolving around his Instagram post and said that it wasn't anything intended towards Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't taking a shot at him at anything. He says, no, that wasn't it at all. I made a name on the red line. Going back to his Chargers days, he's saying, like, yeah, this is what I do. Phillip Rivers, Justin Herbert, they would throw me up passes down on the red line. I'd make plays. He says, that's what I'm good at, playing on the red line. Again, it's just funny, though. I've never heard the phrase red line used before for a receiver route. Never used it. Now, the context for it is it's like a line that they draw out on the practice field or at training camps. So receivers know they're staying like on that route, on that line at all times. But I've never heard it used when talking about like an actual game ever. He went on to say that was just a caption that was needed at the time. That's where the ball was caught at, and we won. I think all of that can be true. Maybe he wasn't really trying to put down his former teammate, Aaron Rodgers, or his former quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. But at the same time, it's like a wink, wink, right? Like, hey, look, I do this. Don't let the Jets stuff fool you guys in thinking that I'm washed or don't know how to play receiver anymore. Like, come on, red line. That was a red line catch right there. So yeah, I think. Listen, I think it was a little shot. I think Williams responded to it well. I think he played it off the right way by not adding any fuel to the fire, almost like Patrick Queen did in his comments about the Ravens not even offering him a contract. But yeah, I think this was a little subtle shot at Aaron Rodgers, and I don't blame him either. I don't, not at all. Okay, last thing though, Steelers made a signing recently, kind of a big name signing, kind of, for it being an acquisition in the middle of the season like this. You don't really get all-pro, Pro Bowl type of signings. We picked up Jamal Agnew, former Detroit Lion, former Jacksonville Jaguar, and former, as you can see on the screen, all-pro return man, also Pro Bowl return man. Made the Pro Bowl a couple years back, being a return man, and going back to his rookie year, was an all-pro with the Lions, 2017. I'm looking at his stats, man. Like that 2017 year with the Lions, he had 447 yards in punt returning, 2 touchdowns punt returning, and that ended up being the best in the league for that season. 447 yards. That was the most punt return yards by any individual. 2 touchdowns. That was the most punt return touchdowns by any individual. That's obviously why he made an all-pro. And then you total it up with the rest of his Lions tenure from 2017 to 2020. He had 5 total return touchdowns. It's both punt returning and kick returning. So 5 in 4 seasons, you're averaging a touchdown return, like 1.25 touchdowns basically per season. That's nothing to sneeze at. And spent 2021 to 2023 in Jacksonville. As I said, in 2022, made a Pro Bowl. But he's a good return man. He's just flat out a good return man. Has carved out his niche in the league doing that. Like 7 years, an all-pro, a Pro Bowl. Can do some stuff as a receiver too, but really gets you like 100 yards, 200 yards. He's pretty much your wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5, if you're actually thinking about him doing some stuff on offense. But as a returner, yeah, he knows how to do that. Definitely knows how to do that. Curious as to why he's just chilling out there in free agency and was available to be signed like this. And he's not on the active roster either. So the Steelers just signed him. I think it was yesterday. And he's added to the practice squad, not to the active roster just yet. And that's why this signing's a little interesting, because we have return guys. Calvin Austin's been really good punt returning for us this year. He hasn't been bad in kick returning either. Or actually, no, he hasn't been really doing the kick returning, right? That's more Cordell Patterson and Jalen Warren. But you got Calvin Austin doing the punt returns, and he's solid for it. I think he's been really good for us. Has a touchdown on the season, but it seems like every time it's punted to him, he catches it. So he has good ball security, but is at least able to usually pick up. If he's not fair catching it, he can pick up, I don't know, at least it seems like on average 10, 15 yards for you. He's always a net positive. But then in the kick return game, you got a Cordell Patterson who just is coming back from injury. And I'm wondering if the Steelers saw what I think most of us saw from last game and Cordell Patterson's return. He just wasn't looking right. We only gave him a few snaps out the backfield on offense. And I thought he looked better running the ball or as running back than he did return man. Yeah, return man, he looked off. He still looked a little bit banged up, looked a little slow out there. So I'm wondering if the Steelers are taking note of that or just like, okay, if this happens again with Patterson, we might have to put him on the shelf. We might have to put him on IR, do something with him and bring up a guy like Jamal Agnew, who hopefully at this point it would provide us a little bit more spark, a little bit more pop in the kick return game. That's what I'm thinking. I don't think Agnew would replace Calvin Austin. I don't think there's a reason to do that, but maybe he would add something for kick returning if Cordell Patterson doesn't get up to speed. That's my thoughts on the signing. I can't really think of another reason as to why we're picking him up because he's not really going to add anything on offense. And we don't need that after we traded for Mike Williams. We got George Pickens here. Calvin Austin, he's obviously becoming a high volume target from, I don't know if high volume target from Russell Wilson would be the best way to describe it, but Russell Wilson is looking Calvin Austin's way a frequent amount. He's trying to get him the ball. They didn't connect last week, but Austin's getting, I think, around like 5 or 6 targets a game from Russ. And then you still got a Van Jefferson who is a former Super Bowl champion, was an 800-yard receiver for a season just a few years ago. That's your wide receiver 4. We called up Ben Skoranek. So, like, we're not looking for Agnew. We still have a Scotty Miller. We're not looking for Agnew to be doing really anything on offense. I'm thinking special teams and specifically as a kick return man. And that is if Cordell Patterson doesn't pick things up, I think, over the next few games. But a signing to note nonetheless, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.